But let's continue the conversation for now with Cheryl Dorsey, a retired sergeant with the Los Angeles Police Department. Sergeant Dorsey, I want to start with you about the charges that we could see today. The family attorney for Nichols, the young man who died, says they want a murder charge. Do you believe that those charges are coming for some or even all of these officers potentially?
Well, based on what's been reported, not everyone was involved in the actual assault on Mr. Nichols that resulted in his death. Some of the officers stood by, what we call acquiescing misconduct. They did not intervene as they're required to do, and now we know that they did not render aid. And so I think we need to expect that this video is very bad based on the way they're prepping everyone. They've already charged one officer. My guess is that's the one that had hands on Mr. Nichols, and we'll have to see what happens with the other four.
All right, and Sergeant Dorsey, I want you to listen to this message from the police chief, or you heard it as we played it earlier in the show. What did you think about how she directly answered this, really speaking directly to the camera and talking to the community?
Well, I think what she is trying to express is her discomfort, her disgust, if you will, with the way that her officers conducted and comported themselves in the midst of whatever this was, trying to take Mr. Nichols into custody for fleeing from a reckless driving possible infraction. It just makes no sense. And I believe that she can relate to that Black mother as I can, being the mother of 4 Black men. And so she did the right thing and she acted swiftly.
And I think we have Bernarda Villanova with us, a criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Bernarda, I want to ask you about, what these officers could be facing and what the prosecutors are weighing here. On the one hand, there's a lot of public interest in this case. They are bracing potentially for really explosive reaction from the community. What are prosecutors weighing if you were in their shoes in terms of how to charge this case?
Mhm. Abby, here we go again. And I think this one is going to be one of the worst cases that we've seen since Rodney King. So, what the state prosecutors are weighing at this time is what type of homicide charge to actually charge these 5 officers. As you know, there are different counts. It could be murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, or it can be manslaughter. And when we're thinking about the different levels of those homicides, it's to think what were in the minds of each of those officers when they decided to use their hands and their feet as weapons and beat down that man. So that's what the prosecutor is weighing, is which charges, to what degree to present to arrest these 5 officers. And that's just preliminary because it could definitely change later on. That's separate and apart from any federal charges. But we know that the state prosecutor, the county prosecutor, is the one that will move first.
One of the big unanswered questions in this case is what even really prompted this traffic stop to go from a traffic stop into a violent confrontation. Sergeant Dorsey, can you just take a listen to this statement from one of the attorneys for the Nichols family describing the role that he understands the officers played in the police department? Listen.
Let's take a step back and understand who these police officers were. They were all young police officers, relatively inexperienced, 2 years to about 5 years of experience each. They were all part of the Scorpion unit. What are they really trying to do? Well, they're trying to find guns and stolen cars, but they wind up stopping innocent people, and they wind up using brute force to do it.
Now, the police department hasn't said exactly what role these officers played, but when you hear that, what does that trigger in your mind? Does it have any bearing on how this confrontation ended in someone's death?
Absolutely. Listen, I can tell you what I know, having spent 20 years in an LAPD uniform. This Scorpion team is probably very similar to a special unit that we would have on the LAPD. These are the officers that I call the elephant hunters. These are the hard chargers. These are the guys that go out and kick A and take names, the ones who do the pretext stops. And so they probably are unsupervised. We know now that they're young on the job, so they're feeling themselves. And we also know that one of the officers is reportedly having been previously sued for some sort of use of force. And so these young officers and others on departments across these United States need to be looked at carefully and make sure that they're not on these specialized units because they want to pain and punishment on people when and if they catch them.
And Bernarda, we're expecting this video. From what we understand, based on everything that's been said publicly by people who have seen it, the video is incredibly illustrative about what transpired. What are you looking for when this video comes out?
Abby, I'm getting goosebumps just even thinking about imagining what could be in those videos. And the reason I say that is because you haven't seen in the past a sergeant, a chief come out before the release of a video and calling it heinous. So that just goes to show you the degree of how violently this man was beaten. What I'm looking for, I'm looking to see, first off, the faces of the different officers and what each one of them were doing. We know for sure that the person was unarmed. We know he wasn't fighting back. We know he wasn't a threat. So what other excuse is there? I think what needs to be happening, and I hope is happening, in order to drive some kind of peace to get through this, is that the prosecutor is starting off with, we have arrested these 5 former police officers and are charging them with these charges. And here's the video, and this is why. And we're looking for accountability to try to bring some kind of peace or calm to this country once this video is released.
Sergeant Dorsey, there's been a lot of conversation about the race of the officers as well as the race of the victim. 5 of the officers involved here were Black. As you think about let me just pause here for just 1 second because we are getting some new reporting out of Memphis. I'm going to go straight to Shimon Prokopez, who's on the ground there. Shimon, what can you tell us?
Right. So, Abby, we're getting our first window into the charges against these officers. We have charges for at least 2 of the officers. We know 5 have been charged. They are in the county jail here behind us as they await to be released on bond. But very significant charges on at least 2 of these officers. The former officer Demetrius Haley and Tadarius Bean, and they are facing, at least these 2 officers are both facing murder charges. Similar charges for both, I should say the same actually, 2nd-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping. There are 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping, and there are at least 2 counts of official misconduct. So 6 counts in all for these 2 officers, but it is significant because what they are now facing are 2nd-degree murder charges, the aggravated assault, but also the aggravated kidnapping charges. So these are obviously some very serious charges. As we've been reporting, we're waiting to hear from the district attorney. But right now, from everything we are seeing, at least 2 officers here charged with murder. This is what the families had asked for. They wanted these officers charged with murder, and it certainly seems that at the moment they are getting what they want. We are waiting, obviously, to hear more from officials. But this is very significant, nonetheless, of course, to see these officers now face these kinds of charges after what occurred here some 20 days ago. And of course, we're waiting to see that video that has been just described to us as horrific. And based on how officials have described this video, based on how they have come out really from the beginning, telling us how disturbed they have been by what they have seen, I don't think it should be that surprising or shocking to people that authorities here have decided to pursue these murder charges. But it is significant anytime police officers face these kinds of charges. And it just tells you also how seriously the district attorney here and the authorities here are taking this case.
All right, the headline here from Shimon, thank you for that report, is that 2 of the officers, Demetrius Haley and Tadarius Bean, charged with a series of charges, including 2nd-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, and official misconduct. I want to get some reaction now from Bernarda Villanova. Bernarda, what do you make of these charges that Shimon just outlined?
Well, when we're talking about murder in the 2nd degree in the state of Tennessee, we're talking about that these 2 officers, they knowingly killed another individual. So that goes to the mindset that when they were acting, they knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew that their actions can cause the death of this man. So that's why preliminarily they're being charged with murder in the 2nd degree. I believe that we'll see an upgrade as to these charges. I think just have to give the prosecutor some more time to do some more investigation, and also got to see which one of these 5 officers are going to flip. And that's if the prosecutor wants any of them to flip. Because if there is sufficient evidence in terms of video, then we don't need a cooperation from any of the five.
And Sergeant Dorsey, your reaction to these murder charges, kidnapping charges, aggravated assault charges as well coming for these officers?
It clearly speaks to the violence that we're going to see when this video is ultimately released on tomorrow. And I think it also speaks to what I like to refer to as the wolf pack mentality. When you have five officers, and of those five, not one of them had the presence of mind to manage that use of force and tell the others, stop, that's enough.